Another type of cybercrime we can talk about is digital piracy. Digital piracy simply refers to illegally copying or using digital media that's protected by copyright. When you think about it, the media that's created, whether it's music, television shows, movies, ebooks, software, photos, whatever it may be, someone spent a lot of time creating those products. And if you think of a musician who creates music, and then someone gets a hold of the music, maybe some people buy it, but then they begin to share it, and suddenly the musician's not making any money, and the producers aren't making any money, and the people involved in creating the entire album, suddenly they're losing money. Well, this is what happened in the late 90s and early 2000s with Napster. In particular, it was Lars Ulrich, the drummer of Napster, that came out the strongest against Napster and began to leverage a campaign against the whole notion that we would use the internet to share music in a way that deprived musicians and others in the music industry the opportunity to make money off of their talent. Napster was eventually shut down, but not without some great controversy and some great criticism towards Metallica and Lars Ulrich. But we know that rather than curtailing piracy, it's expanded quite a bit since then. In fact, it's been estimated that nearly $32 billion is lost in TV and movie revenue each year in 2017. In 2016, there were 191 billion visits to online piracy sites. Now, whenever I give my own exams in class, when there's numbers like that, I'll ask my students, I'll tell them, if I ask you how often this occurs, you can just say a lot, because 191 billion is a lot. And there are many piracy sites out there that anyone can frequent. The most popular one is Pirate Bay, which has been addressed, and governments have tried to limit the ability of Pirate Bay to share media, digital media, illegally. Yet Pirate Bay has found ways through torrents and BitTorrents to be able to share this digital media in a way that they escape the legal ramifications of piracy laws. Each year, PC Mag rates the top 10 most pirated movies. In 2017, those most pirated movies included Thor Ragnarok, Shape of Water, Jumanji, Bright, Blade Runner, Murder on the Orient Express, Downsizing, Geostorm, Justice League, and Coco. Now, to some, you'll hear that being pirated is a form of flattery. In fact, it's been reported that Netflix looks at what's being hacked and what's being pirated, and makes determinations about what they ought to order based upon those items that are the most pirated. Now, there's other examples where piracy data is used to help to make determinations about the types of media and the types of movies and the types of television shows that should be considered, and it just comes down to this idea that piracy is a reflection of human behavior and human interest, and the more that items are pirated, the more that those items have an interest to the public. Now, as far as how the piracy occurs, it could be through online piracy like we discussed, or it could be as simple as people taking their telephones, their iPhones to movies and videotaping movies, recording movies while they're ongoing, and then going and sharing those movies elsewhere. There are many efforts underway to try and prevent digital piracy, and in particular, Tran has written about a number of digital rights management strategies that have been developed. One of the significant parts of these strategies is that they're technological responses to technological innovations that have seemed to deprive various industries of their ability to reward talent. Now, the digital rights management technologies, they exist for a couple of different reasons. One is to prevent unauthorized access, and these technologies, these digital rights management technologies, are developed in a way that you can't access certain software or certain digital media unless you've either can demonstrate that you've made the purchase or that you have a right to access that particular media. They also restrict the use of a product to its intended use, meaning that these types of digital rights management technologies are designed in a way that we can't alter our software or our media to make it do something that it wasn't designed to initially do. And this, too, is believed to limit the opportunities for piracy. They also exist to fulfill a deterrence by making it hard to misuse the product. And also, these digital rights management technologies have been developed in a way that help people to detect identified unapproved use. And you'll hear every now and then about, you may have had friends where they've received an email, a cease and desist, because they have some pirated materials. And the reason for this is these digital rights management technologies are able to track who's using different types of media and identify them, and then develop strategies through either human resources or artificial intelligence to reach out to the people who are misusing or using in an unapproved way digital media. So the digital rights management technologies help to prevent, restrict, deter, and detect. And these systems include things like content identification systems, and these would be watermarks or digital fingerprints that are placed in digital media so that people would not be able to copy that without using or displaying those digital fingerprints. There's also encryption, which would translate plain text to coded data, which would make it so that this data can't be copied. There's also decryption, which translates encrypted data to data that can be understood, and that too helps to limit the ability to pirate or copy digital media illegally. And also, we've seen expanded use of licensing, and these licenses simply provide for contracts that specify the appropriate use and that indicate the penalties that would be provided for violation of these digital rights management regulations. So these technologies are significant, developed in response to the growth in digital piracy. A couple of decades ago, we didn't need these types of responses because there was no concern about digital piracy. Today, though, we see that we've developed these technologies and these systems in a way that help us to better control the illegal stealing of digital media. Some researchers have explained and studied why digital piracy occurs. One of the common explanations is that there's a widespread perception that no one gets hurt from piracy. You know, who gets hurt when we steal a Metallica song and we take a Game of Thrones video and illegally pirate it? Who really gets hurt? Now, there are estimates that point out that we lose billions to these sorts of incidents, but those estimates are kind of hard to grapple with because they're abstract, and they're referring to companies that are experiencing the harm and not necessarily individuals. So this belief that no one is hurt could perhaps be an explanation for why people do these things. Now think back to when we talked about denial of injury, and this idea that if people can convince themselves that nobody's going to get hurt, they're more likely to do criminal acts. Well, that's what we're talking about here. Others have talked about how it's easy to pirate, and you don't need a lot of skills, so that could contribute to why these incidents occur. Others note that punishment is incredibly rare, and because it's easy to commit, because it's believed that nobody gets hurt, and because it's believed even if they do get caught, it's unlikely that punishment occurs. These sorts of things combined may explain why people engage in piracy. There's a criminologist at University of Louisville, George Higgins, who spent a great deal of effort studying why digital piracy occurs. And one of the things he found was that low self-control interacts with values and rational decision-making to increase the likelihood of committing digital piracy. If you recall, we talked about low self-control as being the impulsivity and the short-sightedness. And if certain individuals have values that support the idea that it's okay to engage in piracy, and they have low self-control, then these individuals will think rationally about, am I going to get caught or not? And if they think they're not going to get caught, they're going to do it. Now, the research question that Higgins included, I think, is pretty relevant to college students, where he asked students in this survey, if you're taking a class that requires a lot of computer homework, the class is important for your major, and you want to learn it, and you have all the programs except one, you go to the bookstore to buy the software, but you can't afford it. Others said they would share it with you, and they would burn you a copy. Would you do it or not? Asking students these questions showed that there were many students who had low self-controls and the values that supported the justification to engage in pirating, and that these factors combined help to explain why individuals would report intentions to engage in digital piracy. So who does it? Younger people are more likely to engage in digital piracy. Females are less likely, same as with hacking or other cyber offenses. We also, Higgins and others, have talked about computer self-efficacy, and research shows that there's a small but significant effect. This isn't the same as computer skills. Computer self-efficacy has to do with whether or not someone believes in their skills to use computers. Also, those who see external or internal rewards are more likely to commit digital piracy. If they think they're going to get something out of it, then they're going to do it. How other disciplines view digital piracy. Information technologists would be interested in determining how we can use technology to limit access, and these folks have been especially helpful in developing the digital rights management systems and showing that data can be protected through developing technologies that restrict access or limit access. Business scholars and business experts would be interested in identifying ways that we can limit the loss of money from digital piracy, and they would also be interested in developing ways to make systems more secure. Philosophers would question whether we get too concerned about piracy and whether information should be free, and should people be making money off of data and off of information. Engineers would be interested in developing solutions and secure physical systems that protect computers and limit their opportunities for pirating. Computer scientists might be interested in how software can be developed to limit piracy. Criminal justice scholars, in contrast, would be interested in what we should do to punish and respond to those who engage in these behaviors. Pianist and Nini conclude that